It shouldn't have existed. A field of skeleton arms. They reached up towards the sky, clawing, like they were trying to find a stronghold, some way to pull themselves from the ground. The girl watched, her arms tucked up under her chin in a nervous pose, as the bony palms all turned themselves towards her, like the heads of sunflowers. Fingers twitched without the aid of any muscle or tendon. She stayed next to the road, not willing to get too close. But she couldn't move on, couldn't turn away. Something called her to the field. A voice, a song, that insisted she stay, just a little bit longer. Something she couldn't hear, only feel. At some unknown trigger, they slid back downwards into the pores of the earth like garden eels in the sea. They disappeared between the folds of the dry, corrugated earth. They revealed their heart, rising like a tiny monolith in the center of the field. Color shined out defiantly on the dreary day, like a painting cast aside, left to spoil in the harsh autumn air. The same air that carried that beautiful song to the girl's ears. A song that drew her across the bone fields. They were brilliant, crimson flowers, with 5 rose petals apiece, that sat inside a semi-transparent, candy-red vase. Their smell was rich, lush, and balmy. "Pick us up." The girl, dropping her book bag to the side, reached her timid hands around the bottom of the vase. She lifted, but found the vase was immovable. She was forced to tug and pull and wrench the vase from the earth. It was connected to the soil by red, vibrant roots that snapped, one by one, like the strings of a guitar. With each snap, the beautiful song got louder and louder. The vase came free. The song ended. The wind stopped. Overhead, the clouds in the sky rolled and broke like the tumultuous waves of the ocean, racing across the sky ever faster and faster. She felt cold, and the vase was warm. The girl held it close to her body, hoping desperately that the beauteous song would start again. But that wasn't the sound that broke the day. The girl jumped at the shrill sound of a devilish horn, and at the raucous crackling of the asphalt beneath steel wheels. From the east, a steam engine, fashioned of smoke and bone, carved a path towards the girl, slowing only once it had reached her. The girl stood, frightened at the behemoth before her. Eyeless sockets, carved into its single steel chassis, glared as a smile forged with 100 human teeth beckoned her forward. The girl only moved once the train again blared its awful, shrieking horn, signaling that it had come to a complete stop. Behind, it dragged an endless line of passenger cars, each one as ashamed and charred as the engine. Each one had a door that had opened the moment the devilish train had blown its whistle. The song returned, slow, melodic, sad. Bored. The girl, trusting the voice, trusting the song, took steps towards the first passenger car, but froze when she noticed that something was getting off. Out of every car, creatures emerged, stumbling on misshapen legs and gazing about with curious, inhuman eyes. The creatures spread about, surveying the landscape with an unmistakable awe. Skin like melting tar, and slit eyes of putrid yellow. They lumbered and spoke in short, sputtering fits from mouths unseen. Their voices ill, sickly, and jarring. They ignored the girl, obsessed much more so with the gray sky and the brown grass. Once they had all passed, once they had all off-boarded, the girl dashed for the steps, pulling herself onto the nightmare train. The train wasted no time in lurching forward, crackling as it did so, sputtering hot coals all over the ground. The girl felt unnerved, but the increasingly dark harmonies kept her trapped in a calm trance. She moved through the train, from car to car. Passing through, she found rows of people long deceased. Their bodies hadn't rotted away, but time hadn't been kind. They were dried, shriveled, and mummified, cast under blankets of silky, white threads. As she passed, spiders with red thorns on their backs crept out from beneath their victims to stare at the girl with awfully human-like faces. The train swerved off the road, making way across the barren countryside. Up ahead, a lonely forest. The further the girl wandered, the stranger she felt. The more the song started to turn and putrefy. Walls of the train car started to bleed, with sections peeling like scabs. Corpses snapped to life, laughing amongst each other like hyenas as she approached. Some wore masks, plastic and expressionless. Others wore the faces of fellow passengers, stretched into grins with cords and stitches. Keep going. As the song mutated, degrading into something occasionally jarring to the girl's young ears, she started to doubt and hesitate. She passed a car with human-sized spiders, sporting antlers above their cross, uneven faces. Only the warmth of the flowers kept her sane, kept her going forward. Last car. In the final car, the fields faded from the windows, and day instantly became dusk as they entered the shadowy woods. Passengers were no longer seated. They stood, motionlessly facing forward. Mannequin corpses, whose eyeless, featureless faces only followed the girl once she had passed. Behind her back, and beneath their thin, gray skin, their skulls started to burn a fiery orange from within each socket and opening, illuminating deceitful smiles and furrowed eyes. As she shuffled closer and closer towards the back of the train, there was the final door, tall and imposing. All that was left, all she had to move towards, all she had to move through. Open it. For the first time, she didn't want to do it. For the first time, she truly faltered and thought. The song was growing sourer and sourer. The faces behind her, angered and spiteful, burned brighter and brighter, until their very skin ignited and began to sizzle away. Open it! She took the knob and pulled the door open. She gasped as the figures behind her all fell into ash, each one disintegrating with a fearsome, snake-like hiss. Whipping her neck around, she gazed back outside the train car, into the abyss, into nothingness. She checked. Outside the windows of the car, the bleak forest still came and went. It still existed. Yet, outside the door of the final car, nothing existed. Nothing but blackness. She could see no ground, no sky, no trees or hint of light. Just the dark. Eternal dark. And a rising fear, a stomach-turning terror. It's coming. Figures approached, falling from the train, standing on invisible ground. They surrounded the train on either side like guards, each holding a blazing jack-o'-lantern beneath their arms. Ghastly knights with no discernible clothes or faces. They were headless, she realized. Headless guardsmen. But guarding what? The flowers, their song finally grinding to a halt, rotting inside the girl's very soul. Heard her ask, heard her ponder, and they gave her an answer most unmentionable, a name that she couldn't remember, but one that forced her to scream, provoking inside her a shuddering terror unlike anything in the known universe. It was coming. She could see it in the distance, and she knew that she had to drop the flowers, but the heat they gave off grew in intensity, causing her muscles to cease around it. It felt like it was melding to her flesh. The void surrounded the train, drowning the old woods in its evil abyss. In the distance, it, the unspeakable creature, galloped towards her across the ground unseen, its form changing before her eyes, twisting and changing, made it indescribable. As it approached, the guards took turns kneeling, their essences absorbed into the charging evil, increasing its size proportionally each time. The train's screaming bell shrieked as its brakes squealed, allowing the beast to close the distance even faster. She saw its eyes, blacker than the void, focus on her. She felt its rage growing, its hunger insatiable, its temper irrepressible, its soul irrecorrigible. In that moment, there was no God, no devil, no good, just evil. It lunged, mouth splitting open like a snake, revealing an endless, screaming chasm. The girl screamed back, drowning the tormented song from her head. She placed the red flowers down, back in the field. She fell to the ground, dust rising around her like a cloud. Paused. She took a moment to remember where she was. The field. The gray sky. Behind her, the road. She reached forth, ignoring the beautiful, pleading song, and snatched her book bag from the ground. She ran, leaving behind the fields. Once more, the skeletal arms rose from the dust. Within them, a bleeding, festering heart. It sang. It waited. Red flowers in a red vase.